everyone. It's a real pleasure and privilege to be back. Good morning, everyone. And to join it's a real pleasure and privilege to be back India AI Impact Summit. And to join all of you here at Google. We believe that India AI Impact is essential for unlocking opportunities. At Google, we believe that expanding the innovation capacity for unlocking opportunities and expanding the innovation progress that we're seeing in AI's development is really quite breathtaking. The rapid technological progress that we're seeing in AI's development is really quite breathtaking. To solve problems and represent an extraordinary opportunity, power economies, to solve problems, science, and empower people, power economies, challenges, advance science. Indeed, we're beginning to see the impact of this. So it's not just in the future, but we're already starting to see some of these benefits and impacts. So it's not just in the future today, but we're already starting to see some of these benefits and impacts. 5 years ago, our AlphaFold system, which is our Nobel Prize-winning innovation, 5 years ago, solved the 50-year grand challenge of our Nobel Prize-winning innovation. And since then, the 50-year grand challenge of AlphaFold protein database, and since then, used by more than freely available AlphaFold protein database over 190 has been used by more than 3 million researchers in over 190 countries. And in fact, India is actually the fourth people are working on a variety of problems, everything from neglected diseases, where people are working on a variety of breeding-resistant, everything from neglected diseases, and a whole range of things that are incredibly beneficial, resistant soya beans, and a whole range of things that are incredibly beneficial. But to take full advantage of this potential in India, we need to collectively expand access. But to take full advantage of this potential, as you may have heard, collectively expand access right from the beginning. We need to ensure, as you may have heard, our CEO does not become an AI. We need to ensure that the digital divide, digital public infrastructure and open networks are an important part of digital public infrastructure and open networks. Provide the coordination layer that allows AI to translate human intent. They provide the coordination layer that allows AI to translate. And India has been leading the way with systems like into real world and Bashini. And India has been leading the way with bringing the capabilities of AI into the daily lives of network and infrastructure, bringing the capabilities of AI into the daily lives of people. At Google, we've been a very committed partner in this journey by helping to build the foundation. At Google, we've been a very committed partner in this journey. For instance, by helping to build our collaboration with the Indian Institute of Science to scale it, and in particular on Project our collaboration has now completed a second phase, and in particular on Project where we've been covering every Indian state making speech data for over where we've been covering every Indian state making speech data for over 100 Indic languages. In fact, this includes 20 languages that have never been recorded before. In fact, this includes 20 languages that have never been recorded before. Truly try attempt to reflect that we now build true linguistics in ways that truly try attempt to reflect India's true. And we continue to build on our commitment to drive scaled impact at the grassroots. And we continue to build on our commitment to drive scaled impact is reflected in our recent partnership with the World Bank. This commitment to scaled impact is reflected in our recent together we're taking a blueprint born right here in India and scaling it by together we're taking a blueprint born right here in India and scaling it by localizing it across Kenya countries from and the heart of this blueprint began with our partnership and with the government of Uttar Pradesh. And the heart of this blueprint there we piloted a Gemini-powered open government for agriculture that provides there we piloted a Gemini-powered open AI agents to facilitate everything from farmers with multilingual crop AI agents to facilitate by taking the lessons we learned in Uttar Pradesh to crop where digital tools drove real by taking the lessons we learned in Uttar Pradesh we're proving that a smallholder farmer can compete we're proving that a smallholder farmer can rather than the platforms that they're on and execute on the value that they create success rather than the platforms of architecture. This isn't just a regional success. It's now a global architecture and a model that can be the success of these networks depend on a single fundamental principle. The success of these networks depend on a single fundamental principle. It must remain this is the driving force behind our support for the networks for humanity. This is the driving force behind our support for the networks for and through a $10 million Google.org grant that we announced last year. And through a $10 million the network for Humanity Foundation that we announced universal tools for the network for Humanity Foundation is building universal tools for tomorrow that can open networks and by establishing innovation labs from Singapore to Switzerland networks, they're ensuring that the innovation lab opportunity is a global standard standard. They're ensuring that the infrastructure of opportunity is a having this type of infrastructure in place is what will allow all of us to collectively having this type of infrastructure in place is what will allow all of us. That's why we're supporting change makers like Wadhwani AI through Google.org. That's why we're supporting change makers to embed intelligence directly into the digital realms. That try to embed intelligence directly into the digital realms. In healthcare, for example, millions of Indians, something like 1.4 million in healthcare, for example, this means empowering multilingual something like 1.4 million providing early warnings to combat child malnutrition AI across the country. Providing early warnings in agriculture, it means integrating AI into the national pest surveillance agriculture, it means to protect integrating AI into the national pest surveillance system scale to protect and in education it means crops delivering high quality learning experiences and in education it means delivering high quality learning experiences and development through AI-led transformation and this is an initiative that's already reached 10 million students and educators and this is an initiative that's already reached 10 million 75 students and educators and nearly 2 million educators as many as 75 million students and nearly 2 million educators to fully capture AI's beneficial potential. We must be ultimately to fully capture AI's beneficial and be committed to building all of this together. We must pursue AI's most ambitious to building all of this together, while ensuring we must pursue AI's most ambitious necessary to while ensuring that we build the coordination layer necessary. With that, it's now my great pleasure and honor to welcome with that it's now my great incredible leaders and innovators to honor to welcome an extraordinary long time incredible leaders and innovators to the stage. First, I'd like to invite Nandan Nilekani with incredible impact. Nandan is the first. I'd like to invite Nandan Nilekani. Nandan is the co-founder and chairman of Infosys. He's a global leader in digital public infrastructure. Nandan is the co-founder and chairman of Infosys. He's a global leader in digital public infrastructure. Co-founder of Networks for Humanity, an initiative building open. I should say I've known Nandan for a very long time. When he first told me what he was working on, I should say I've known Nandan for a very long time. When he first told me what he was working on 15 years ago, I'm not quite sure. Joining us is Sangbu Kim. Sangbu is a World Bank's vice president. Sangbu Kim. Sangbu is a World Bank's vice president. Sangbu is the World Bank's vice president for digital and AI, leading efforts to drive Sangbu is the World Bank's vice president for digital and AI, leading efforts to drive digital economy growth in developing data privacy while modernizing infrastructure, cybersecurity, and also touching many data privacy while modernizing government services, and also touching many areas like Kiran Mamzuma and Shaw. As chairperson of Biocon Kiran is a pioneering biotech. As chairperson of Biocon Group, Kiran is a pioneering biotech. Kiran is a pioneering biotech entrepreneur, healthcare visionary, and a passionate Kiran is a pioneering biotech entrepreneur, access to healthcare visionary, and a passionate innovation, committed to and finally, please welcome Sunil Wadhwani, innovation. And finally, please welcome Sunil Wadhwani. Sunil is a visionary entrepreneur and philanthropist who co-founded the Wadhwani Institute. Sunil is a visionary entrepreneur and philanthropist who co-founded the systemic social transformation through AI solutions, systematic innovation, social transformation, healthcare through AI solutions, and innovation in public systems. So we're now going to have a conversation, education, and agriculture. So we're now going to have a conversation. I can't wait to do a conversation with. Nandan, let me start with you. You've been with decentralized ecosystems for a very You've been championing building open networks, decentralized ecosystems for a very scale in India, building open networks, and taking things to extraordinary scale. You bring a lot of credibility to both users of these systems, and obviously, and to bring a lot of credibility to both users of these systems. How do you see AI as a multiplier or a factor as you think about open networks? How do you see AI as a multiplier or a factor?
No, I think AI is very fundamental, and I'll explain how open networks. No, I think AI is very fundamental, and I'll explain how some of us have been thinking about is together. If AI is a general purpose technology, some of us have been thinking what is the fastest way of if AI is a general purpose technology in a productive way? What is the fastest way of diffusing the use of AI in a productive way for lives improve? And ultimately, all this is only we have a lot of experience with open networks. I mean, in some sense, and I think UPI was an open. We have a lot of experience with open networks. Open architecture led to the massive. UPI was an open network for payments, the world's largest payment system. Open architecture led to the massive. A lot of those principles are embedded and became the world's largest payment system. So we have other examples. A lot of those principles are embedded in Beacon. Open networks allows. We have other examples. Many actors, many innovators to build. Open networks allows the edge using AI. Many actors, many innovators to build. We keep talking about agents, but I think the real power of agents, and I think, is we keep talking about agents, but I think the real power of agents user is removing complexity for the farmer or somebody who's user is there, producing a little bit of electricity. A farmer, or if they can very easily transact, producing a little bit of electricity with somebody else. If they can very easily transact, then suddenly with somebody inclusion else through an agent scale, which is in their own language. I see really then suddenly AI inclusion agents on an open network. So I see really as the fundamental AI construct for agents on an open network diffusion of technology. As the fundamental construct for massive diffusion of technology. Oh, totally. I think you talked about what you're doing at IISc. I think there are many initiatives in India which essentially you talked about what you're driving to make. I think language many initiatives in India completely accessible because language is not driving to make language, pure language. I mean, the way Indians accessible because language is not just English, Hindi, and Tamil pure language. I mean, the way Indians. So how do you deal with that? How do you recognize that in one sentence? So I think all that is how do you deal with that? How do you recognize that? So I think all that is getting addressed. There are many initiatives, voice AI, Google project. So I think there's lots of stuff. But fundamentally, I think language as a barrier with the Google project. So I think there's lots of combined language. So fundamentally, I think language as a barrier with language. And so then if the combined language, so some transaction talks to the agent in their own language, hiding all the complexity behind does some transaction. Then, that's the holy grail, right? Hiding all the complexity behind it, and that's how AI will get diffused. That's the holy grail, right?
And speaking of you mentioned,
and that's how AI will get diffused.
Somewhere, let me come to you. And speaking of you mentioned farmers and agriculture. Somewhere, let me come to you. I mean, first of all, the World Bank recently launched AgriConnect. Tenet makes what smallholder farmers do much more efficient. Tenet makes but I'm curious, what has that work taught you so far about the type of global standards what has that work taught you so far about the type of global standards that are going to be needed to scale local solutions?
To look about AgriConnect in Uttar Pradesh for now. So to look about very AgriConnect in Uttar Pradesh farmer-oriented. So it is to provide very coherent and consistent farmer-oriented services to provide at the same time coherent and consistent open network services. That means at the same time. If you think about the previous day, that means. If you think about the previous day, mobile innovation, now we are seeing from the AI computer innovation. I would interpret this we are seeing evolutions from the supplier-oriented service evolutions from the customer-user-oriented service environment. In that sense, some open standard and open network is really crucial part. In that sense, some open standard and open network is really crucial part. So it is very efficient and user-centric solutions for. So it is very efficient and affordable solutions for quality of service in AI era. In that sense, the fully this AgriConnect quality of service to project is really in that sense the important. But it is not only for project is really important, but it is not only for really looking forward to expanding to another sector. We are really looking forward to expanding to another. So it can be a very universal and education.
That's pretty powerful. In fact, speaking of healthcare, you mentioned you're taking this to healthcare. That's pretty powerful. In fact, speaking of healthcare, you mentioned you're taking this to healthcare. Kiran, you've been an incredible advocate, and you've talked about this idea that we need to move beyond the industry of medicine. And you've talked about this idea. Say more about what you have in mind industry of about what we need to move to. And tell me, say more about what you have in mind. What's going on about what we need to move to, data sets, and in particular how you fundamentally transform what's going on maybe with AI and data sets.
I think
with fundamentally
I have to answer this in two parts. The first part is how do we basically leverage I have to answer this in two parts. The first part is how do we basically leverage what that is the first big opportunity as the digital and I think India is a country that can uniquely create a and I think India is a country that can uniquely create the use of AI when it kind of health data that we're collecting. The use of, for instance, AI in the beginning to collect a lot of health data. So, for instance, India is, beginning to collect a lot of health data in its health stack. Demographic, and it's phenotypic, it's genomic, and radiologic demographic. Now, and of course, treatment and treatment outcome and radiologic. Now, when you start collecting this treatment and treatment outcome, the whole objective. Now, when you start collecting this data, which is universal health objective. At scale, in a sustainable way, and how do we reduce at scale? In a sustainable way. All these are big challenges and are very complex and increase lifespans. All these are big challenges and are very complex. This is a starting point where you get this huge digital stack of this is a starting point where you get this India has digital stack of health and the consent-based kind of because India has this open data sharing model and the already established kind of secure data sharing model already established apply this to health. I think and when you do that, you will start risk profiling your population. And when you do that, you will start which I think is very exciting your population and at scale, at a demographic level, which I think is very insurance into that, and that will be even more powerful. And that can only be done by AI. Insurance into that, AI has the opportunity that can only be done by AI. So AI has the opportunity insurance profile very fast to see how we can marry the risk profile with the insurance instrument. To see how we can marry the risk profile with the insurance. AI can be given a lot of easy, but insurance is a good challenge because which it cannot. AI can be given a lot of. So I personally am very excited with what AI can do for health. So I personally am very excited with what AI can do for healthcare delivery model, digital health and. Additionally, of course, India has this unique model, a model of ASHA workers. Additionally, of course, India has ASHA workers can be empowered model of ASHA workers. That is even more powerful. If ASHA workers can be empowered with AI, the common people, the common man is very important. The common people, the common man is very important. Now coming to my excitement about your second question about. Now coming to my looking beyond about your second question. Beyond this, I'm looking at what is it that advancing beyond this. Beyond this, I'm looking at now biology on its own was limited because it didn't have biology the kind of power of technology limited because it didn't have the kind of power of technology to get deeper alpha genome is going to give it immeasurable opportunities to understand is going to give it immeasurable biological intelligence to understand biology. Just amazing. And to me, and if you combine it with artificial intelligence just and bring that convergence. And if you combine it with artificial intelligence, huge transformation. Bring that convergence. And when I look at I think we're in for biological intelligence. When I just look at when I look at biological how cells signal. When I just look at cell biology circuits, how cells regulate. How cells create circuits, connect and disconnect. Cells regulate. The human body, living systems have distributed data centers. The human body, and these data centers have distributed data centers with sips of energy, not gigawatts. And these data centers are connecting, and they're actually translating that into instant information, and they're actually translating that into instant and information and decision making. I think it's going to be transformation. If we can learn that. I am really looking forward to reprogramming cells. Transformation, right? That's the holy grail. I am really looking forward to reprogramming cells into a non-malignant cell. That's the holy grail. How do you basically look at regenerative science? How do you look at lifespan? How do you basically, your biggest question today is regenerative science. How do you look at lifespan? From, your biggest question today is to primary. How do we shift from hospital-centric care to primary and predictive and preventive medicine? That's, I think I've said enough.
Yeah. Well, it would actually take us, in effect, Kiran, it would probably take us from...
I think I've said enough.
Yeah. Well, it would actually take us, in effect, Kiran, it would probably take us from... And I like you and I were talking earlier, you and I and Demis were talking about this idea of... And someday, I like you and I were talking earlier, you and I and Demis were talking about this idea of... Someday we should be able to try to build virtual cells, models of virtual cells. That's one of the exciting things.
It's very exciting.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back to that. But I want to come to you, Sunil, which is... Yeah. I'm curious back to that. But I want to come to you, Sunil, which is what is the I'm curious role as you think about what open networks play in developing and scaling role does DPI to some societies in developing and scaling thinking about this for a very long time. To some way back when you set up the AI, you've been thinking about this way before most people were thinking way back when you set up the AI. I want to hear what your perspectives. Most people were thinking about these things. But I want to hear what your perspectives and experiences.
Just so we're all clear, there's a lot of intellectual horsepower on the stage. Just so we're all clear, it's all on this side. Intellectual horsepower on the stage. Here for my good looks, and it's all on this side. So just so we manage expectations. I'm basically here for my good looks. But when just so we manage expectations. AI back in 2018, but Prime Minister was good enough to come and inaugurate that. AI back in 2018, basically we had a huge benefit enough to come and inaugurate that. To your point, that over the last 20 years, the government of India has developed
and actually even more powerful. That can only be done by the insurance industry has the even more powerful.
And these DPIs are basically digital and this DPI are basically digital program implementations that connect public service workers, program implementation, so and I'll give you a couple of examples. So and I'll give you a couple of examples. So I again very practical towards DPI functions and benefits as I see it. Very practical. Number one, they provide data, functions, and benefits as I see it. And for AI, they provide data, build data pipelines, social sector. And for AI, without the kind of data, couldn't build data pipelines for the social sector. Secondly, this DPI provides distribution channels so that once secondly, these DPI provides distribution channels so that once your inference models are ready, provided these AI platforms, again, we get our AI models at scale. Provided without these, we get our AI models at scale. In the public sector, these would cost the usage incredibly more, and in the public sector, the social sector would cost incredibly more, and wouldn't scale anyway.
Biology kind of power of
so one of the challenges, so one of the national health priorities for the government of India. So one of the challenges, so one of the national health priorities for the government of India for the last several years, the largest infectious disease killer in the world, 2 million a year. It's the largest infectious disease killer in the world. India, close to half a year. It's the largest infectious disease killer in India, unfortunately dies. 20 other survivors, unfortunately, that unfortunately dies.
When I look at biological intelligence, when I look at biological cell signal, when I just cell biology circuits, how cells regulate, how cells create select and disconnect, how cells regulate the human body, how cells have distributed data. The human body and these data centers have distributed data, sips of energy, and these data centers are actually translating that into instant information and actually translating that into instant information and decisions. I think we can learn that. I am really looking forward to reprogramming cells. That's the I am really looking forward to reprogramming cells and non-malignant. That's the holy grail. How do you basically look at non-malignant science? How do you look at basically your biggest threat to degenerative science? How do you look at shift from your hospital-centric today, primary? How do we shift from hospital-centric care, primary, predictive and preventive?
Then the mortality rate goes up dramatically.
Well, it would actually take us, in fact, probably take us from. It would actually take us, in effect, probably take us from. And I like you and I were talking earlier. You and I endeavored to talk about this idea. And someday, I like you and I were talking earlier. You and I endeavored to talk about this idea. Someday we should be able to sell virtual cells models of virtual cells. We'll come back to that. But I want to come to you, Sunil, which is, I'm curious back to that. But I want to come to you, Sunil, which is, what is, I'm curious as you think about an open networks pay, what role does DPI to some society in developing and scaling thinking about this for a very long time? To some way back when you set up the AI, you've been thinking way before most people were thinking way back when you set up the AI. I want to hear what your way
is what most people were thinking about. I want to hear what your perspective is.
Just so we're all clear, there's a lot of intellectual horsepower on the stage. Just so we're all clear on this side, intellectual horsepower on the stage here for my good Lord. It's all on this side. Just so we manage expectations, basically here for my good Lord. But just so we manage expectations back in 2018. But I usually said I'm an moderate on AI back in 2018. Which TV over the last 20 years, the government of India has
Which TV
regulatory contexts, we need capacity building so that all countries can meaningfully engage with the technical evidence and not just with large AI research to do systems. I would encourage all stakeholders to use scientific almost always not as a constraint on the policy flexibility, but as a foundation for durable, effective governance that can maintain public trust. We need to keep the conversations going one where science informs governance and governance sharpens science. I would just perhaps end by highlighting Singapore's continued commitment to contribute to advancing these discussions. We were very fortunate to host the International Scientific Exchange on AI safety and to bring about the Singapore consensus on global AI safety research priorities. Singapore for this very momentous event. We will continue to participate in joint testing efforts of the International Network for Advanced AI Measurement, Evaluation and Science. We have organized 2 editions of the Singapore AI Safety Rift Challenge. The first multicultural and multilingual AI safety exercise focused on the Asia-Pacific region. And as chair of the ASEAN Work Group on AI governance, we have actively building spearheaded all countries can meaningfully engage ASEAN by adapting global norms and best practices for ASEAN and in bringing about regional harmonization of ASEAN Guide on AI governance, as well as expanding it to address the risk in generative AI. We are now working with ASEAN to explore practical tools for AI safety testing and aim to collectively develop a set of AI safety benchmarks that reflect our region's governance concerns. And finally, I'd like to welcome all colleagues to join us in Singapore for the second edition of the International Scientific Exchange, which we expect we were very fortunate to host the International Scientific Exchange, and we look forward to this discussion. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Mr. Teo, for your closing remarks. This session is now concluded. Thank you very much.
Actively building spearheaded all countries can meaningfully engage ASEAN